The weight of one. The yacht Mignonette sliced through the South Atlantic under a sky the color of old bruises. Captain Edward Dudley stood at the helm, his hands steady despite the growing swell. With him were First Mate Stevens, Sailor Brooks, and the cabin boy Richard Parker, 17, orphaned and foolishly optimistic about the voyage that would make a man of him. None of them expected the wave. It rose like judgment itself, black and silent until the last second. The Mignonette rolled, splintered, and surrendered. 4 souls scrambled into the lifeboat with nothing but 2 tins of turnips and the clothes on their backs. The sea swallowed the rest. For 3 days they drifted under a merciless sun. On the 4th, they shared the first tin. On the 5th, they caught a turtle and opened the second. After that, nothing. Day 8. Tongue swollen, lips cracked. Parker had stupidly drunk seawater and now lay curled at the bottom of the boat, feverish and muttering. The others watched him with eyes that no longer belonged to civilized men. Dudley spoke first, voice hoarse. "We draw lots. 1 dies so 3 may live." Brooks refused. Stephens said nothing. The lottery died before it began. On the 19th day, Parker's breathing was shallow, his body already a sack of bones. Dudley motioned to Stephens. Brooks turned his face away, staring at the empty horizon. A prayer. Short, hollow. The flash of a penknife. A single wet sound. They fed. 4 days later, a German ship appeared. The survivors were rescued mid-meal, their faces streaked with horror and relief. In Falmouth, England, they were arrested. The world called it murder. Dudley and Stephens called it necessity. Brooks turned witness. The newspapers sold outrage by the pound. But the story did not end with the courtroom. Thomas Hargrove, a philosophy professor at a quiet New England college, first encountered the case in Michael Sandel's old lecture recordings. He played the trolley problems for his students every semester. The lever, the fat man on the bridge, the transplant surgeon. Clean hypotheticals, comfortable distance. Then he began dreaming of the lifeboat. At first, the dreams were academic. He stood on the bridge overlooking the tracks, fat man beside him. But the fat man had Parker's young face. When Hargrove pushed, the boy looked back with betrayed eyes and whispered, "You already know the answer." He woke drenched in sweat. One rainy October night, after grading papers on utilitarianism, Hargrove poured himself a glass of scotch and opened a scanned copy of Dudley's diary. The euphemism about breakfast when the rescue ship arrived made him laugh bitterly. He fell asleep at his desk. He woke in the lifeboat. The sun was a white coin, hammered flat against the dead sky. Salt stung his cracked lips. His hands, thinner, rougher, gripped the gunwale. 3 other men sat with him. One was Dudley, one was Stephens. The third was himself, or a version of himself, eyes hollow with hunger. At the bottom lay Richard Parker, alive but dying. Hargrove tried to speak, but his tongue was swollen. Dudley leaned close, breath foul. "Numbers, Professor. 1 life, 3 futures, families waiting, the greatest good for the greatest number. Bentham would approve." Hargrove shook his head violently. In the distance, he heard the faint rattle of a trolley on tracks that should not exist on the open sea. Parker opened his eyes. "They always choose the lever," the boy rasped. "They always push the fat man when no one's watching. But when they have to feel the blood, that's when the real story begins." Stephens handed Hargrove the penknife. It was warm, as if it had already been used. Hargrove dropped it. The boat rocked. Suddenly, the sea around them filled with floating bodies. 5 workers on the main track, the fat man, the organ donor on the gurney, all of them staring up through the water with patient, accusing eyes. "You teach the dilemma," Parker whispered, "but you never live it." Hargrove jolted awake in his office, heart hammering. The clock read 3:17 a.m. The scotch glass lay shattered on the floor. A thin line of blood ran across his palm, shaped exactly like a penknife cut. He told himself it was stress. A paper cut. Imagination. But the dreams returned every night, growing more vivid. In each one, he was offered the knife. In each one, he refused. Until the hunger became so complete that refusal felt like another kind of murder. One night, the lifeboat dream changed. This time, the other survivors were his own students. The bright ones, the ones who always raised their hands for the trolley lever. They looked at him with desperate hope. Parker was no longer a boy. He was every innocent life the philosophers had weighed and found expendable. The knife was in Hargrove's hand again. This time, a new voice spoke. Not Dudley's, not Parker's. It was Sandal's calm professorial tone, echoing across the water as if from a lecture hall at sea. Better that one should die, so that 5 should live. Or 3. Or millions. Where does the arithmetic stop, Professor? Hargrove looked at the students. Their faces were gaunt, lips bleeding. One of them, his favorite, a quiet girl named Maya, coughed weakly. We read Kant too, Professor. Categorical imperative. People are ends, not means. Parker smiled sadly from the bottom of the boat. They always say that, until they're hungry enough. The hunger clawed at Hargrove's insides like living wires. He could feel his own body consuming itself. The smell of salt and blood and fear was overwhelming. The knife felt heavier than the entire ocean. He raised it. In the dream, he brought it down, not on Parker but on his own wrist. Blood flowed warm and real. The students gasped. Parker's eyes widened in something like wonder. The lifeboat dissolved into mist. Hargrove woke screaming in his bedroom. His left wrist was slashed deeply. Blood soaked the sheets. He had no memory of getting the kitchen.